Hi, I'm Antonia, and I am the host of the Working Moms Playbook. Here, real moms share real stories, building businesses while battling infertility, hitting breastfeeding goals without sacrificing their careers, finding their style as new moms, and so much more. And it's just season 1. Let's jump in because let's face it, moms don't have time to waste. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Working Moms Playbook. I'm your host, Antonia. Today we have a very special episode that I've been so excited about. We are going to be speaking with Feminista Jones, who is a writer, a public speaker, a community activist. You are pretty much a jack of all trades, right? And you are also doing your makeup at the time of this episode.
I am. I'm always on the go. Although life has slowed down a bit for me, thankfully. But, we get in when we can, right? And we do what we got to do when we can.
Yeah, and I think what we all know is working moms is that we are multitaskers.
Absolutely. And we do it so effortlessly in some ways. No, you know what? Let me not say that because it takes effort, but we make it look effortless. And that's why I think sometimes people don't realize how much it takes for us to be able to juggle all of these things.
Oh yeah. We juggle so much and it's, I look at the men and I'm like, you could just never. So what have you been up to since the last time we spoke?
Okay, so gosh, so much has changed, but so in 2024, I graduated from Temple with my PhD.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Starting the program at 40 was definitely interesting, but I enjoyed, the opportunity. And I'm so happy that I was able to complete the program. And while I was there, I got to teach at Temple, taught a dozen classes while I was there, which, actually awakened, this kind of wow, I like being in the classroom. I was already doing Sankofa Summer School and realizing that education really is it for me right now and kind of this career pivot. And so that's what I've been doing. And since graduation, I have been adjuncting because the way the climate is right now, I remember reading that 74% of all professors today are adjunct. So I've been adjuncting. And I've been enjoying the flexibility of it, but a girl could use some health insurance. I'm just going to do that. They'll give you retirement, dental, vision, but they won't give you the, So I've been doing that. And then again, with being, kind of getting into this academic space, I have been publishing, I have been presenting at different conferences, kind of really getting into the feel of doing that. And then expanding Sankofa Summer School. We just had our 5th year anniversary and I'm so excited that it continues to thrive. And I have my eyes set on an extension of that kind of a Sankofa reentry program, hoping to work with the City of Philadelphia's Department of Reentry, kind of looking at a reentry program that's kind of Afrocentric, but focused on Black moms that are returning to their communities and their families and kind of giving them that peer support, that therapeutic support. So hopefully that's something that I could get, jumping off in the next year.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you're always doing so much, always. You're go. The last time we spoke, it was years ago, and I can't remember exactly what you were doing at that point, but it was all very important.
I think I was in school. I think I was still in school.
Yeah.
Or had just started or what have you. And I think, as I've gotten older, particularly when I think about the fields that I'm in, right? So as we know, pretty much everything that's related to DEI is all but been scrapped and affirmative action and stuff. And so being a Black queer woman, right, kind of taking hits in those ways, it's they're not calling you to book you as much for speaking engagements, right? Because all of those budgets are gone. And so, I had to start thinking entrepreneurial. What I'm offering is stuff that people want. How do I make sure that I can still deliver on these, these kind of really educational and community organizing type things, but also keep a roof over my head. So, I've been thinking a lot about what that means. And, again, as a mom, you're always thinking of the next step.
Yeah.
Because you can't just settle in on plan A. You have to have a plan B and C because there's kids involved, right? And you have to think about, if it's just me, I can land wherever and I'll be okay. But it's not just me. So that's kind of been motivating a lot of the stuff that I've been doing lately.
Yeah, and to remind those listeners, Feminista has a 19-year-old son. He is doing his work in college right now.
Yeah.
So you have like been through a lot of chapters to get to this point. You're kind of at that quote unquote, like, it's not the final chapter of parenthood, obviously. It's just continuing on. But you know, he's in college. You're just like in that chapter. You're kind of able to like almost fully focus on yourself. Like you're not having to feed and like parent on the everyday, like in a
and it's been such an interesting transition. I'll be honest, I thought I was preparing for empty nesting, and I had not. So he is a freshman in college. He goes to school in upstate New York, about 5 hours away. And it's a small liberal arts college, and he loves it. I mean, it's the perfect choice. He got into several schools, and we really just had to think about fit. And we went up to there to visit, and he was just like, yes, I love it here. Wow. So he's up there. Because it's 5 hours away, I haven't seen him since August, but we talk regularly. And I mean, he just kind of jumped in, and I have to credit myself with preparing him, socially, because I'm going to tell you, Antonia, a lot of these folks, I'm in these Facebook groups, the parents are going and picking their kids up from school because the kids are dropping out. They're dropping out left and right. They didn't even make it to midterms. Like, so many of the young people are struggling. And, and I'm watching, I'm just like, wow. I mean, definitely think about COVID, and we think about, pandemic learning, and we think about all these kinds of things. But I was just so shocked. And so my son, he just really just jumped in. And I do think a lot of it is because I helped him socially and mentally and psychologically prepare for life away from home. And so now that he's gone, it's kind of like, okay, I'm in this house by myself with the cats. Okay. I have 4 cats, and I'm just like, all right, so what do I do now? And, it's like, how do I make sure that I'm occupying my time? How do I make sure that, I'm not kind of falling into this place of, thinking about my kid. And, I was a woman before I had my son. I'm a woman after he moves on. So it's been a lot of that negotiating.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, it hasn't been the easiest. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's a big transformation.
I love my son. Like, I some of the times I read some of the conversations in these groups, and I'm like, you guys don't actually like your kids. Like, I love my son. The way they talk about their kids, they're like, and I'm just like, I see why your kid with no contact, but my son is one of my best friends, and I have an amazing relationship with him. So the fact that he's been gone so long, I'm not going to lie, I miss my baby.
Well, you're going to see him very soon, and I'm so excited for you. In terms of your work side of things, I know you mentioned that you're going to be featured in an upcoming book that focuses around Black single mothers.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Share a little bit about that contribution and what led you to participate in that project.
So the book is by Jamila Lemieux, and it's called Black Single Mother. And, when she approached me, because we've been friends for many, many years now, and we've kind of worked together in the same kind of Black feminist spaces and things like that. When she approached me, to kind of share my story, I was like, yes, because finally we get a book like this, right? And, like a lot of people, have issues already, haven't even looked at the book, haven't done anything, but they're already criticizing it. And I said, that's exactly why we need for Black single mothers to be able to tell their stories, to be authentic, to be real, and to humanize us, right? And so my dissertation was looking at the depictions of Black mothers in film, right? And so this kind of like, I don't know, it's, in the last few years, I've just really been so focused on like how Black mothers are treated.
Yeah.
Just in the Black maternal health issues we talk a lot about, and, the women dying and stuff, but then the ones that live, where's the support? Where's the love? So when she approached me about the book, I said, yes, this is going to be something that is going to affirm literally millions of women, and not just Black mothers, right? Like any single mom, and not just single mom, any Black mom, right? Kind of to read these real stories. And so, I opened up and I shared. There were some things that I told her I didn't, want printed, but that's just because I'm, protective of my privacy. But I needed to tell my story, because my story is it's different than a lot of people's stories. So I wanted to share that.
So what do you think in your journey, what has it really meant to be a Black, single, queer, working mom who, in addition to all that, has also just been so deeply engaged in community care and liberation work, education? What has that meant to you?
You know, it's meant, it's so interesting because a lot of the discourse that we encounter about single moms kind of faults us for, you know, not being married, right? Or and I was married, I was divorced, you know, and you know, I am divorced, I should say, and they'll blame us, right? Like, well, he left you, and you must have been bad, and you know, all this kind of stuff, and it's like, well, no, I'm the parent that's here. I'm the parent that you know shows up. I'm the parent that goes to every competition and every concert and recital. I'm the one that is sitting there crying when there's a breakup with a girlfriend. I'm the one that, you know, is doing all these things. And so I take honor in that, right? And thinking about the journey, you know, his dad kind of, you know, falling off around the time he turned 13, 14.
Okay.
I felt that it was important to tell that story because a lot of times we see, especially in social media age, young kids are cute for social media, right? They make great photos and it's all fun for content. But when those young people start reaching an age where they can start asking questions, you know, and they start to want to know, well, why haven't I seen you in 6 weeks? And, you know, who is this new woman? You know, then all of a sudden it's, you know, well, phone works both ways. Well, no, you're the adults. The phone does not work both ways. You're supposed to call and check in. You're supposed to see your kid. And so kind of seeing that start to change in his teenage years, I couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and I don't know if it made the book, but she was saying, you know, you used to write about your co-parenting and parallel parenting and like you guys had a great relationship. I said, yes, we did. When you find the answer, let me know. But I mean, as I started talking to more people, I realized there's a certain age that your kids get to that they're no longer, I don't want to say like toys or pets, but it's like something about the cute varnish wears off.
Yeah.
Because they're becoming actualized people who are making decisions. They're saying, you know what, I don't actually want to see this weekend, or I don't actually like this fifth person you're introducing me to. So that's when I started noticing the fall off. And I said, okay, well, it doesn't matter. Still going to do what I need to do to make sure that my kid has everything that he has. And that's basically been it. And it's taken a while. And like, we don't talk. The only time I talk is to say, hey, the tuition is due tomorrow. And that's really it. Because outside of that, what else is there?
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and that's it. And that journey taught me a lot about just how deeply the love between a mother and son or just any child, really, a mother and son. I know you have a son and I know you have, right? And there's just this deep bond there that I'm so glad I was able to cultivate over the years, you know, with or without his father's input.
Yeah, it's something that is just so special. And I don't think really anyone to become a mother in general is so special. But then when you have a son, that mother-son relationship, even from a very young age, is just like very, very strong, very...
It's so important. It's so important because we have to make sure we're raising people that are not going to become misogynists, right?
Yep. Not going to be misogynist, not going to be, you know, another woman's headache.
Right. And so kind of just thinking like from the feminist perspective, everybody's like, well, how do we fix these things? And I was like, well, a lot of it has to do with how we're raising our sons.
Yeah.
You know, kind of divesting of the patriarchy, kind of, you know, teaching them that masculinity does not have to be about, you know, subjugating women, that like you can find there's different ways to be a man.
Yep.
And I'm very proud of my son. He's very creative. He's a musician. So he's very artistic. He's compassionate and all these things, which I think are directly from me raising him primarily, you know, kind of with me, kind of teaching him this is how you treat me. I mean, when he went through a breakup with his girlfriend, I really coached him through it. Because on one hand, I'm like, you need to affirm your boundaries and things that you want, but also not be a jerk and be somebody that causes her pain. You know, so those kinds of moments, I just think they really stood out for me.
And of course, with motherhood, there is such as special and as wonderful as it is, there is a huge emotional labor of motherhood. There's a huge, that's so big. I mean, it's, you know, there's the 9 to 5, but motherhood's just 24 hours a day revolving around and around. You are also,
and for someone like me, it's 24/7, 7 days a week. It's anytime, because when you're like kind of freelancing and out here, you don't have 9 to 5. I wish sometimes I had that 9 to 5 schedule.
Right. But, and your work especially really dives into such like an emotional labor and importance, and your work in general, like the topics and that you've chosen to focus on and educate other people on and bring light to are already center around like healing and justice and Black pain. How do you balance all of that together?
You know, cannabis is legal in Jersey. No, you know, so, you know, I think I definitely have noticed a shift just in my own bandwidth and my own willingness to participate in certain things. You know, I used to have this mindset that like, you know, no one else is going to do it, so I got to do it. And I just was like, yeah, but you know what? What happens when I'm no longer able to do it? Someone would have to, right? And so I started shifting. Like, again, this pivot to education really taught me a lot about really like each one teach one and reach one, right? And so for every person that I'm able to reach on an individual educational level, that's going to translate into a community being, you know, affected and stuff like that. And so kind of scaling back a bit and kind of channeling that energy and redirecting it towards education, I realized that I've been able to kind of cut down on a lot of the stress and the things like that. I prioritize myself, and, you know, we talk about self-care a lot, but that wasn't always something that I was really great at, even as a social worker. I knew better, but whatever.
It's easy to fall into the trenches.
Yeah, I've gotten really better with recognizing that maybe when I'm not in the best space to communicate that with other people instead of trying to push through. Because as somebody who prides herself on being her best self, if I push through, I'm not going to be able to give my all. And I don't feel that that's fair to the people I'm working with. So it's so much easier for me to say, hey, today is not the best day. Can we please reschedule? That's something I'm really good at.
And we did that.
Yeah.
We did that.
Yeah, we did that. We both had stuff going on. Yeah, we had stuff going on, and you got to that's what it is. And I think sometimes, you know, kind of, especially living in a capitalist society, the demands kind of push beyond our humanity sometimes, right? We forget that we're actually human beings. And so I've gotten a lot better at motherhood. It's definitely taught me to get better with that. And then also kind of focusing on, again, what is my why? Why do I do any of this? And it still remains the liberation of our people and just the liberation from all this oppression, and kind of looking at the landscape of the United States right now. You know, it's not funny, but what do you do?
All we can really do is chuckle in this moment, really.
All you can do, like honestly, it just every day, several times a day, it's just like an assault on your consciousness. And you're like,
yeah. It's
you know, so if I don't have the boundaries, if I don't practice the self-care, I would get totally lost and caught up in it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, right now, you're practicing self-care right now because you want to look your best for when this is done and you've got plans tonight. So, you know, this is an example right now. Let me say, you're doing an amazing job.
I rarely up anymore because I rarely go beyond like you know the coffee shop or the a couple times. I definitely love my house. I love where I'm living right now, and so I don't go out as much. So I usually don't do my makeup as much.
Well, let me tell you, it's looking really good.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. I do like to present my, when I do have to go, and I'm going into the city now, so it's like, you never know.
Yes.
I'm still Feminista Jones, so you never know who you're going to see. Like, there's never a time I'm in the city or center city or something like that, and I don't have somebody come up to me and say, oh my gosh, I love your work. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, and oftentimes they want selfies, and I'm just like, well, I have to be ready.
You're like, I need to be ready for that, for sure. Let's dive into Black motherhood and media. I know we really wanted to speak about that. When you look across TV and film and even social media today, right? Now that has become so visual, especially
that is the new media. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you see Black mothers being portrayed? Like, have things shifted all over at all over the years?
Yeah. So, this is my wheelhouse. This is what I research. I spent several years really looking into kind of you have to start backwards because you look at the effect, you look at the impact. I look at the way that people vilify Black mothers, and I had to work my way back. How did we get here? Right. And so that takes you all the way back. I mean, thousands of years, literally, and you're studying all that. And then, of course, you recognize that media is like the most powerful weapon, to craft negative narratives about people. So I started digging into that. And I developed this test. I was inspired by the Bedfield test, and I developed this test called the Taylor test, which basically has these different criteria for the depictions of Black moms that can help you, determine, is this a generally positive depiction or accurate depiction? Or is this a depiction that serves a nefarious agenda?
Okay.
And so I started analyzing, some films and realizing that like all the filmmakers and TV show runners and stuff, they all have choices to make. And every time they make a choice and a Black mom ends up looking really horrible, I'm like, that was an intentional choice. Why did they do this? Right. And so we know that media shapes narratives. We know that if you're somebody who does not spend a lot of time around a Black mother, and you go on and you watch a show on television, and like 3 out of the 4 Black moms you see are drug users or, things like that, and abusive and stuff, you start to develop this idea that, all Black moms must be abusive and harmful to their kids. And that's exactly what was happening. That's what we saw happening. And so a lot of the ways that people think about us is because of how the media has depicted us. And so what I was proposing in my dissertation is that we can use this test and other means when we're actually developing the characters. So rather than go off of stereotypes or, well, this was my aunt. I'm like, yeah, that's your aunt, but that's not every aunt. Let's, think about some of these cultural things. And so, is this a Black mother who wears her natural hair? If not, do we ever address this? Do we just assume that if she is a single mom, well, why is she a single mom? Do you actually address that? Or do you present it as a norm? Right? Like these are the kinds of things that I want filmmakers and showrunners to think about. And so what's been really interesting is that I've actually had screenwriters starting to reach out to me now to consult with them. Yeah, to consult on some of the projects that they're working on. They're like, hey, I've got this mother and she's and I just wanted to talk. I wanted to run this by you. And what do you, and for me, that's exactly what I want. I want them to acknowledge, hey, we may not have this all together. Let's go to someone who's an expert in this, who has studied this, and also someone who's committed to improving the depictions of Black moms in media.
Well, and it's so important for many reasons, but especially because I feel like in this day and age, the generalization crowd is just so huge. It's not just, there's like a failure for people to recognize that not everyone has the same story and that not everyone is the same. And then there's also a failure to really separate Hollywood, right? Like in the movies, a character in the movies from a real life person.
Right.
And I feel like there has always been this issue, but as of late, there has been a really big issue because it's just, you see one character on the show. Okay. Anybody who has one inkling of the same like situation going on or hair or skin tone or story is then that depicted into that generalization. Or one thing happens on the news and all of a sudden whoever that person was, everyone who has to do with that person.
And I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm actually going to write more about this because I have to like kind of flesh it out. But there's a cultural flattening that happens on social media because what happens with social media is that now you can access anyone around the world. You look at TikTok, right? You have people from New York City talking to people in LA, in Jamaica, Nigeria, Taipei, whatever, all at the same time. And so they're picking up the same mannerisms, the same language, the same ideas. There's a flattening happening there where everyone is starting to be the same. And so this idea of being different from that risks your social currency, right? Especially in these spaces. And so we're seeing more people kind of assimilating into these kind of flattened identities. And I think that ends up that leads to people seeing one and, like you said, applying it to everybody. But again, because social media is media, right? We're getting highlight reels, or we're getting the worst of the worst. One of the questions I always ask is, when these videos go viral with Black moms in it, why is it almost always her fighting, yelling, being nasty, hitting her kids, something like that? Where's the viral videos of the Black moms bouncing a laughing baby on their lap? Like, why doesn't that go viral, right? Why is it always her disciplining her kids or something like that? And we have to think about, well, what engages people to make them want to reshare this negative stuff, but not this beautiful, loving moment, right?
Yeah.
And so that's, again, it comes from what you saw on TV is how you think about Black moms. So that ends up being the only kind of Black mom you understand.
Yeah.
So when you see something different, you're like, that must be AI. That's the other thing, right?
Everything
that
AI
doesn't seem realistic to people, now all of a sudden is AI. And it's like, wow, that's a whole other...
That's a whole other...
That's a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing that we're talking there.
It's so interesting, too, because with social media, I feel like for TikTok, for example, right? The original TikTok was really meant to portray creativity. Like the original, like way back.
Yeah.
And now it is just so, it's the same. Everything's the same. I mean, even when I used to be able to like rot basically and scroll on TikTok for like an hour and watch anything from like a really fun dance to, the next second it was like a Hawaiian hula, right? And it was like a real one. And then
different types of stuff.
And then it was like something funny. And then it was this, and then it was that. And now when I scroll, it is just like this same video with the same script, but just a different face. And I'm like,
it's a social flattening.
Yeah.
And I think a big turn was when that woman, Risa Tisa, did that whole like story about like her husband, like that 40-part story or whatever. And then she was able to get kind of like a Netflix deal and other things like that. I think that was a pivotal moment in recent time, which kind of changed that landscape. I don't have TikTok on my phone. I'm concerns about all of that stuff. I don't use it. I actually have said, I'm on record saying I think it's one of the worst things to come to humanity. It's really destroying knowledge. It's destroying critical thinking. It's destroying cultural diversity, everything. And so, I just can't do it. A lot of it is generational. A lot of it is literacy, right? So in order to engage in media, you have to have literacy, media literacy, and then basic literacy, right?
Yes.
So we're dealing with a decline in literacy. We are dealing with a decline in critical thinking. We're dealing with a decline in all the things that helps us remember that other people are human beings. And so that's what I think is at the core of the issue. And as a mother, I have a Gen Z, kid. He's 19 years old. He is firmly planted. He was part of that 2005 to 2007 baby boom. So there's so many of them. And I had to be really intentional about monitoring what he was doing online. Like, what are you watching on YouTube? Because they're radicalizing young men on YouTube. I got to make sure you're not watching Andrew Tate or any of these other harmful men, right? I have to make sure that you're not spending hours and hours, losing hours on, online on social media. So my kid is actually not that big into social media.
So that's awesome because
which is really interesting considering who I am, right? Considering who I am, he's actually not that big. He just wants to share his music, and that's it. So, I'm fortunate in that regard. But again, still having those conversations because what happens on social media comes offline too, right? And you see them doing these like horrendous pranks and all this stuff. I'm like, what? Where's the humanity? I think that's the question I ask myself at least once a day, Antonia. Where is the humanity? And what can we as mothers do to make sure? Because it really is up to moms, right? Like, let's be honest. It really is up to moms to make sure that we are raising compassionate, caring children and who become compassionate, caring human beings.
Yeah.
Like, we really have to think about that.
And it's so easy to, not only just with social media, but all the forms of media that we've spoken about. It is very easy that when you are being told that you are a certain way and you are a certain someone, it can be very easy for many mothers, but just people in general, to become that representation. And so much gets lost, so much culture, as you mentioned, lineage.
Yes.
And it really, it ungrounds us, right? It totally takes our roots away.
And that's scary to me.
Yeah.
Because what does that mean for the preservation of these amazing cultural things? Like each group has so many amazing cultural contributions to the world. What happens when that all flattens?
Yeah.
And we lose it, right? What happens when there's no diversity of aesthetic, when people they all have the same hairstyle, the same clothes, everything. What does that do for us as, again, humanity? What does that do for us? So I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
Probably more than I should.
Well, it's one of the most interesting. It's one of the most interesting parts. Individualism and being unique is one of the most interesting parts of the human race, right? We all
absolutely
look different. We all act differently. We all have different backgrounds and cultures and hobbies and likes and dislikes. And then when all of a sudden you can pretty much copy and paste.
Yep.
That becomes...
And that's really what it is. It's copy-paste. It's copy-paste. And it's ChatGPT. And so again, with the advent and the explosion of generative AI, which is about, the bubble's about to burst like the .com one did, just a lot faster. But with the advent of those things, we're essentially telling these next generations, you don't have to think.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to think for yourself. Any question you have, you don't have to figure it out. Somebody will give you the same answers they've given a million other people, and now we're all good, right? And so thinking about media from that perspective, particularly generative AI, I've done some searches on there just because I need to know what this is about Black mothers. And I'm telling you, the stuff that it's coming up, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, what are we doing here? Like, even synopses of certain films and the depictions of the moms are just negative what the ChatGPT is saying. And I'm like, if this is what young people are relying on, then this harmful, kind of thing will perpetuate. Absolutely.
So then what can we as mothers, like you said, mothers really have, we're the ones who can make the change. What would you say is, and I know it's very hard, and it's definitely not a simple answer, but what is something that we as mothers can do to help challenge these stigmas and stereotypes that continue to persist and encourage critical thinking and I mean, it's a big one. Encourage critical thinking and encourage seeing humanity as humanity versus what we're running into today.
So I think for any moms that, yourself, you got this young 18-month-old, people off the devices. Like, I know that's so difficult to say, but just from everything that I've seen in my 46 years, we gotta keep these kids off these devices. Social media is gonna have to go. It's gonna have to go until your young person is firmly developed at least a foundational sense of self. Exposure to these things are only corrupting our young people, and that's just the truth. Can argue. And what ended up happening, right? Let's be honest about this. A lot of parents were turning their kids over to these devices to raise them. Same thing happened with television. So I'm not, sit the kid in front of the television and because you have so much more to do, particularly like moms and single moms or moms who are married, but the husband doesn't contribute much, right? They put the kids in front of the television because they have to go clean, they have to go cook. That's what's happening now. So they put a tablet with Bluey on it, and then they're able to get a lot of things done. I know that is a go-to, and I know that it's difficult, but we actually have to stop doing that. Kids like cardboard boxes. Let them play with the cardboard box for an hour the same way that you would put them on a tablet, right? That's going to develop creativity, imagination, things like that. The other thing I think is that we can't be afraid to be involved in what our kids are doing. I think there was this movement to kind of be a little bit more hands-off and allow them to be independent, stuff like that. But you can actually support their independence and nurture their independence while also making sure that you're plugged in to what is going on with them, right? Cultivating relationships where you have open conversations. I think there's one time in my son's teenage life that he did something that violated the trust that we had. And I remember that the way that I felt was just because he'd never done anything like that. I thought that I had done whatever kind of job to make sure that he would never. And, my partner had to remind me, he's a teenager, right? it's like the fact that this is the first thing he's done like this is abnormal.
Yeah.
And I had to think about that kind of like, that is, you're right.
Like there should have been like 10 things by now.
He's a teenager.
Yeah.
And then I talked to my dad, and my dad was like, you did the same thing, right? Okay. I gotta go. So
he humbled you really quickly.
Right. In some kinds of moments, but I realized I cultivate here, and parents have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think allowing, we've been pushing our young people towards being, cogs in this capitalist system. Allow them to explore, allow them to be creative. The humanities are constantly under attack. A lot of our young people are not being given the opportunity to explore being painters, singers, musicians, crafters, those kinds of things, because they're being told, oh, that's not going to make you any money. And, all those things. No, let them do it. Because that's where the humanity develops. And make sure that they're like hanging out with friends in person. We know body language is like 80% of communication. Let's get these kids, make sure your kids in front of other kids, not parallel playing, but actually let's bring back some of these old school games we used to play together. Let's play tag. I haven't seen kids playing tag in so long, like freeze tag, things like that. Bring those things back. Encourage the young people to engage with each other in person. That's where I think we can shift and kind of go back to some of the old school ways that we used to be. I'm not saying that all the old school ways were absolutely good, because, no kid should be going home at 6 o'clock with a latchkey around their necks, at 7 years old, going home.
Some of these things can definitely go and not return.
Not necessarily that, but there were a lot of things that we used to do as families, as parents, just as community members, that we've lost touch with due to technology. And so my simple answer is to limit our reliance on technology when we're raising our children.
Yeah, I think it's a really important one. We have spoken about a lot of topics that I feel like you and I could probably divulge in for a lot more than 40 minutes.
We got a part two. We got a part two.
We might be needing a part two here, because these are very important topics that we have definitely done justice to, but definitely deserve more attention and time. We have spoken about a lot of challenges and a lot of discourse, but of course, there is also joy to motherhood, and also a Black motherhood. So to wrap things up on a positive note, because we're talking about how there's so much negativity in this world, right? What brings you the most joy as not only a mom, but a Black mom?
Oh my gosh. To see my Black son, who now plays multiple instruments because, I put the instruments in his hand when he was a baby, to see him perform and to see how he's blossomed. He's an introverted, kind of shy person, but just to see him get up on that stage and come to life and just really lean into that has been such a source of joy, for me. I sit there. I'm definitely the Black mom that yells, "That's my baby!" I don't care. That's my baby. I'm so proud. So I've had those moments have been the absolute best. And then, again, at 19, he's become one of my best friends. Like, he is a young man who still figures things out, but he's grown into a really smart young man. He's culturally conscious, like talking about, how he's navigating stuff in college. He'll come and talk to me. If he needs advice, he'll ask advice, but just kind of keeping him work through those things that brings me complete joy. And he'll be home for Thanksgiving break, and I get to cook for him again. It's been months.
And I'm sure he's looking forward to that.
I can't wait. He's 6'5", like 250. He'll come home, and somebody's finally going to eat this food. And so, it's those kinds of things that bring me the immense joy. Again, your goal is to raise them to be people who are going to not just be, productive members of society, but cultural contributors, right? What is your kid going to add? My kid is going to add beautiful music, and that's something I'm very proud of, and definitely a source of joy.
Well, I love that. It makes me a little emotional hearing you say this, because I think that this is all I could ever hope for what my son turns into. And, you've clearly done a amazing job at raising a man at this point who is culturally conscious, like you said, and he's a contributing member of society, but also a positive force and creative force in society. So I just want to like give you a big hug for being able to do that. I know it's so hard, and you just are amazing. I've always like looked up to you.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for joining me. I love connecting with you. I love hearing your wisdom and your perspective, and I'm just so excited. For those of you who would like to know more about Feminista, where can they find you?
They could just go to my website, feministajones.com, and I have all the information, different ways that you can learn more about me, support my work, get in contact with me. Follow me on social media, Feminista Jones, pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
So, definitely connect with me. I have a YouTube channel, all that kind of stuff. Just, I'm always here for, especially for people that want to learn more about, my experiences and are just really curious. I'm always dropping some kind of knowledge. So,
I love
definitely
that. Yeah. Perfect. And I just have to add here that, and I'm not throwing you under a bus here, but I'm saying you do answer. I have to say for listeners, you do actually answer. When I first reached out to you years ago, I was like, she is never going to answer me. She's so like doing so many important things. Like, I'm probably going to get connected to some like random like manager, and then they're going to like throw me through all these like circuits. But no, like you answer, and you take so much pride in that, I think. And you're very human about that.
Yes, that's super important to me because, last year I was talking about like I want to be done with the Feminista Jones thing. I just kind of over that. Well, because of the product that it become, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of objectified product where I felt like people were starting to lose the sight of the fact that I'm Dr. Michelle Taylor and there's a human being over here, right? And now, again, once my son turned 18, I wasn't as concerned about the privacy issues and, the use of the pseudonym and things like that. So there was definitely a transition with that. But yeah, it became a product. It became something I could represent, and part of the reclamation of my own humanity, kind of moving forward in my life is definitely those interactions. So, and then also, if anybody has if I've ever worked with somebody and had a positive experience, I consider that a contact or, a colleague or something, whatever it is for life. Like, as long as we have a good vibe, you need me, I need you. Let's work together. Let's support each other, especially as women. Like, come on, we really are all we got. And this patriarchal society that we are in wants nothing more than to see us, fail. And so we just lift each other up and support each other.
We need that village.
That you reached out to me,
Yeah, we need that village. Well, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you so much for coming on today. For those who enjoyed this episode, which I'm sure it is every single one of you, make sure to follow the Working Moms Playbook, rate it, leave a quick review. I want to hear your thoughts. It also really helps the show to grow and reach more moms. And then thank you so much for listening, and I will see you all next Wednesday for the next episode.